I'm here with scrapbook expert Allie Edwards, who's well known for her graphic scrapbook style. And she has a great blog too. And Allie is here to share a wonderful grid layout. So Allie, tell us about this layout.
Thank you so much for having me. This layout that we're going to talk about today features a bunch of different square photos, a couple little pattern paper homes for some embellishments, and then some hand-drawn die cuts. And we're going to talk about kind of the reason why I designed it that way and how I put all of those different things together.
Great, let's do it.
Okay, so the first thing that I start off with is the photos. And I did, let's see, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, how many can we count today? I don't know. Photos there, and I arranged these in Photoshop. So I use Photoshop as my photo editing tool. And I actually did them a little bit bigger. They're 3 by 3, and we are going to use a die cutting machine to cut them out 2.5 by 2.5. So while you're cutting those out, I'm going to talk a little bit about the hand-drawn die cuts there. They're a little bit smaller than the 2.5 by 2.5, which is the size that I'm working in, because I don't want them to be as big as the photos. I want there to be a little bit of room around the photos. And I'm just using a thicker tipped pen and hand drawing a little bit of a square, and I'll do one of those for you, and I'll do it upside down. We'll see how good I am.
You're a brave woman to do handwriting upside down.
And these are not supposed to be perfect, okay? These are supposed to be imperfect, and I like it that way.
So just so you know, I am scanning in the photos into the machine so that I can choose exactly where they cut so that I can get exactly what I want.
Perfect. I'm so excited to see. I love the idea that it can cut that. And I'm just going to write life is good, and I'm doing it my way this time, which means it's upside down on there. And I'm connecting my letters to the sides, so that then that would be cut. So a really simple, easy way.
Otherwise, if you don't, it'll fall apart, right? You want it to come out as one piece.
We want it to have connected so that at the end, you end up with, oops, let's get them the right way here, 3 or 4 different ones that are...
So all we did before is we scanned in the handwritten things that you did into the machine, and then we cut them out of plain white cardstock.
Exactly right. Yep, just plain white cardstock, and then that is what the cuts end up as. So we're going to set those aside for a minute while we work on some of the other little embellishment squares, and while you're continuing
so
to
I'm just checking
those.
Because I have dragged 6 2.5 by 2.5 squares, which is the size you said you wanted them, on top of the photo. So I'm just checking to make sure that I'm not cutting off anybody's head.
Oh yeah, that's good. Julie and I were talking earlier about cutting people's heads off, and I'm a forehead cutter, so sometimes I will cut foreheads off. I'm okay with that, but we usually want to end up, you know, with their whole head.
I'm guessing for photo paper that we want to be at a 5 on our cutting blade, so we'll see.
For a thicker setting with the photo paper. All right, cool.
So I'm going to get that cutting.
So while she's cutting that, let's talk a little bit about these pattern paper embellishments. These patterns are coming off of 3 different pattern papers here. And when I'm going to use a square punch for these. And when I do them, I am looking to have some white space around these flowers. So I'll just show you an example of one here.
Yeah, and you could obviously do this with a die cut machine as well, however works for you.
Lots of different ways that can happen. So these patterns, I used a combination of ones that were a little bit smaller and then ones that were larger. But even on these larger ones, let me show you an example here. I'm cutting them off to the side.
That's interesting. So you're including a lot of white space instead of just doing the red. What is the reason? Because I noticed basically this is consistent, whether it's a medium pattern or a large pattern, you know, you're including a lot of white.
Part of the reason why I did that is because when I'm going to put I'm going to add some embellishments on. I'm going to add a little bit of something to it. And to me, it looks too busy if there's too much of a pattern on there. Just a personal choice. Even with my photos, you'll see a lot of times I'm going either to the left or the right. I'm kind of an off-center sort of person. I am an off-center person. Okay, so let me show you. Okay, cool. You want to show those?
Yeah, I was just going to say, look how easily it just comes right out. You can pop them out, and you have them perfectly cut to 2.5 by 2.5.
Awesome. Okay, well, let me show just on these embellishments. I'm doing a little bit of stamping here and using a circle stamp. I like circles as embellishments, especially on something like this layout that has a ton of square, hard edges.
It's the contrast, right, that makes it so interesting. Because I do notice that my eye on your layout is going to these 2 circles that you have right away.
Yep, that's totally why I did that. And white stamping ink here on top of a circle. This one it can get a little bit too dark. So I'll do one and then I'll show you some other examples of ones that I have there as well. So you're just stamping right on the craft paper.
I noticed, by the way, that you didn't put a lot of pressure on your stamp. And one of the things about acrylic stamps is often you need to not use as much pressure and squish them too much.
Yes, and I squish them often and then I'm dissatisfied with it and I have to go back in. So let me show you, just using a little circle punch to punch that out. And you can see it's a little bit wet, so next time I would probably wait a little bit longer and let it dry.
And of course, you could scan and cut that too if you wanted.
Exactly.
There's just so many ways these days to get absolutely whatever you want.
So many options. And you can see the finished one ends up looking like that.
And I noticed you've popped it up on foam adhesive, which you've also done right with some of the photos.
Yes, and we can talk about that. I like to have a variety of dimensions, right? Especially on something like this.
How about the writing on the photos?
Let's show that. Now I'm using some black pens here, and we've got a variety of different...
Something that's made to do on a slick surface, right?
Yes, and again, this is like a completely imperfect sort of thing. And I wrote stuff like silly time, bedtime, and I'll just show you a quick example here. Again, I'm not trying to make this straight at all. I'm gonna write my way here, bedtime.
And I know also, Allie, on some of your finished layouts here, you also have done some writing around the edge and all sorts of stuff, just finding ways to bring your handwriting and your energy into your projects.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I like photos and I like the story. So the story is always super important. So anytime I can get more words on there, that's definitely the way that I want to go.
I agree. Story's always #1. Thanks so much.